We went to Washington, D.C. We lectured. We're in a panel with over 200 utilities and 100 and some regulators from every state in the union. The topic, wattsmart, ES Solar.
All right, guys, welcome to this special episode of The Huddle. I'm Chris Luke, CEO of ES Solar. With me, I've got Zach Randall, the VP of Sales. I've got Blake Richetta. He's the CEO of Sonnen and chairman of the board. And Geoff Ferrell, who is I had to write it down here because there's so many things. He's the senior VP of the VPPs.
There you go, it's a lot of P's.
VPP, Virtual Power Plant, for all of you out here who don't know yet.
Yeah.
Happy to have you guys. We have a great partnership. We've had it for the last 3 years now. Mm-hmm. It's been awesome. We've done great things in the industry together. This is just kind of this is our second or third time we've got together.
Yes. I think it's third time on the podcast.
Yeah, third podcast. So maybe some of you guys have seen the other ones. If not, I highly recommend you go see them. This is just more of an update, kind of where the partnership's at, where batteries are, and kind of what the industry looks like. So.
Yeah. Well, I was just going to say, it's been almost 4 years now since we started selling Sonnens and Rocky Mountain Power. So maybe tell us how it's going. How's the partnership been for Sonnen? I know how it's been for us, but how's it been for Sonnen? How's it been for wattsmart?
You want to take that one?
I'll take the wattsmart side. I think wattsmart is going phenomenally. Just like any new program, the first couple of years are trial by fire. We're learning some things, a little bit slow adoption. Our partnership with you guys has been remarkable in that. I think we've overcome a lot, figured out things that don't work, gotten to things that do work really well. And what we've seen the last 2 years is just incredible growth. Just in Q4 of 2023 alone, we added like 400 new units that were just kind of installed and wanting to get in there. And then this year has been off to a banging start, and the nodes are growing. Sorry, the clusters are growing. Performing really well and doing really important things for Rocky Mountain Power, removing carbon-based fuels from the mix, allowing Rocky Mountain Power to plan better for the future, to embrace what it is that we're trying to do here with the mix of fuels and energy sources better, and just do overall great things for Rocky Mountain Power ratepayers.
Good. Yeah. I'll just add on to what he's saying by saying, man, the stuff he's talking about is no small thing. It's a big deal.
Yeah.
We're talking about nationally and even globally, Rocky Mountain Power being given huge accolades because of this achievement. And it's because of ES Solar that it's been so successful. They've been given awards that are the top of the industry because of all the stuff he said.
Yeah.
And it's really special what wattsmart has achieved, and it's only the beginning.
Absolutely.
It's exciting.
Just so people know, because we did throw out the VPP, and you're the VPP specialist, do you want to maybe explain to everyone what virtual power plant really means?
Well, yeah. How long is this spot? How long is this?
2 minutes.
No. Generally, our version of a virtual power plant is the ability to take individual assets, so in this case, batteries in people's homes and businesses, to swarm control and view those over the internet and swarm aggregate. We call it aggregating those assets. So instead of it being a small battery in Susie's house or Zach's house or your home or whatever, or in this building, power in this building, for example, we can take all that together. We can go to Rocky Mountain Power, work with the utility, work with the market, and say, I have megawatts and megawatts and megawatts of power, megawatt hours of available energy, and bring that all together to really make a large difference on the grid as a whole, from 1,000 or 3,000 or 5,000 different little places that aids in decongestion and the decarbonization of the grid long term.
So why is that important? Why is that important to the grid?
Well, yeah, long term it's important because we want to continue to embrace renewable energy, wind, solar, hydro, these types of things. The issue is if we do any of those alone without energy storage, without flexibility, without visibility, smartening up those assets, it doesn't really have a future. We can build and build and build, and then we hit a wall. And this wall really is solar works great when it's sunny. Wind works great when it's windy. Hydro works good when you're not in a drought. But by having flexibility and smarts behind those things, connected to those things, Now we can have sun 24 hours a day. We can have wind when it's not windy, or we can have energy from wind when it's not windy, to be more exact, and really just give the grid of the future the flexibility that it needs.
Yeah, I love grid of the future too, because for all of you out there that are watching this, I mean, those are a lot of smart words that maybe you don't understand. I mean, it is fast and a lot, but ultimately the cool thing is every home we put batteries in, solar battery, or if we're going back and adding a battery to home, it basically shores up the grid so that when things happen, they can pull from all these batteries and get the extra power. And I mean, there's nothing better for a grid. Grids will be unstable and grids will have issues without battery storage in the future.
Yeah. And I would say most importantly, the most empowering part that I love is it makes customers part of the solution. It allows them to participate in the grid of the future, to bring something to society that we've never been able to do before in a one-way grid before, really be part of it and have a financial reason to do it.
Yep.
Cool. So 2020, Rocky Mountain Power gets rid of net metering in Utah. It changes our whole business model and everything else. We start learning how to sell the sonnen. We start learning why it's important. But I think this year's been the biggest change with things got a little bit tough, and Rocky Mountain Power was asking us, hey, there's 80,000 some odd solar arrays existing in Utah without batteries. Maybe speak to why it's so important, because that's been a big part of our business now, is we're going to these customers and we're selling them batteries, getting them enrolled in wattsmart, getting them rebates and all that stuff. Why is that so important to the Go Back program? Why is it so important?
Go Back is monumentally important. It is a method to be able to take the existing solar that's out there and actually transform it from something that's relatively difficult to control into something that is a huge asset. This idea is that solar, if it's bottled up, can become the same as a power plant. But if solar is not bottled up into a battery and properly used, then it never is a power plant. It is only, as Geoff said, an intermittent source of generation. And so by transforming solar from intermittent generation to what's called a firm dispatchable grid asset, you're effectively making it so you can actually go all the way through the energy transition. You can actually get rid of fossil fuel power plants. But as long as you have all these solar houses everywhere and buildings that are not firmed up, that have not been made part of the greater solution, then they're always going to be out there effectively making it more difficult to manage the energy system. And this could be heartbreaking for someone who has solar or a solar contractor that doesn't understand this. You guys are going back to those customers and firming up their solar and transforming that solar into something that is truly usable.
Yeah.
While decarbonizing.
Let me ask you this, just because you used the word firm up a couple times again, just so everyone watches it, understands what does firming up mean?
Yeah, great question. So instead of imagine it like water. So you've got this water hose and it's just spewing out water, and you have no ability to control when it turns on or when it turns off. And so it's constantly flowing all over the place. This would be a solar array by itself. As soon as you take that water hose and you start having it go into a giant container of water, and then you can have it something that uses that water on the output side when it's needed, then you've basically transformed that source of water into something that's really usable and can be drank, become part of a resource for society. So the word firming up refers to the fact that the solar goes from being erratic and even volatile to being completely harnessed and harmonized with grid operation and directed towards when people actually need a drink. You need a drink of water, you need a drink of solar, but you only want to drink it when you need it. And that's called firming up the solar, also firming up the grid.
Which is super important.
Long term, there is no energy
Ultimately,
transition.
that's why this works so great. Let me ask you another question. I know Zach has a bunch too, and sorry to keep going, Zach, but
No, you're good.
But why the sonnen battery? I mean, there's lots of batteries out there. What makes it the best battery to firm up solar with and to firm up the grid? And what makes it smart? Kind of two questions in one.
You want me on that one? We're interchangeable here, so we'll just point randomly. Yeah, so sonnen has been, it's really an incredible story. It's an incredible journey. I came from Tesla before. We were benchmarking sonnen back in 2016. We were trying to figure out the first Powerwall. And it's because sonnen had been doing this idea of, again, taking solar and using it in a specific way as a network, as Geoff said, dispatching an entire swarm of batteries at once to replace power plants to perform authentic grid services. Sonnen had been doing this since the first battery built, which is really weird. So most batteries, especially in America, most energy storage products started off purely for backup power. And even if they weren't for backup power was a big part of what they did. And certainly the idea of a virtual power plant was more of like an esoteric kind of thing. And then sonnen started this in 2010 with grid optimized energy storage, and then launched a full deep value stack of grid services in 2018 in the European Union, became the largest VPP in Europe. Now, I must say, with our several VPPs that we have in America, right here in Utah is the largest directly utility dispatched VPP in the country. Wow. It's wattsmart. It happens to be mostly because of your company. Yeah. And the point of what I'm saying to get to the end of your question is, so sonnen has built this battery for deep cycling abuse, for a grid to beat the heck out of it, to actually use those electrons to power homes and buildings properly when it's needed, and to perform a whole variety of academic grid services in grid science. And so our battery chemistry is built specifically for deep cycling VPP abuse, and the VPP software we're very proud of. He runs the organization in the US that manages the VPP software. Ultimately, it all comes from our comrades in Berlin. And they have this VPP platform that's years ahead. So we have, in Utah, we're now knocking on the door of 9 grid services. So when people talk about VPPs in this country, they're usually talking about one grid service, an emergency load reduction a couple times a year. Here in Utah, it's 9. So the end of the story is, this is a battery built for the virtual power plant, and the battery chemistry itself and the software are the 2 reasons why it's completely unique for that application.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's awesome. So, go ahead. I was going to say, I mean, our customers that we deal with here in Utah, they love backup power. So that's part of what they get when we put a sonnen on their house. But they're also getting a check for wattsmart and all those things. So maybe speak to the customer, like, what are they doing for our air quality maybe in Utah? Or what are they doing? What are the differences they're making besides, you know, selfishly getting backup power when they add a sonnen battery on their home?
Well, it's a really good one.
That's a great one. I mean, here's my answer. What I would say is, you don't have to make a choice. That's one of the things I love about a battery, about the sonnen battery specifically. You don't have to choose backup. You don't have to choose this grid asset. You're getting a blend of both. And of course, with Rocky Mountain Power's wattsmart program, they're incentivizing you to go in that direction. So yes, you're going to have backup if that's what you need. If that is a base need that you are reaching out or responding to an ES Solar, sales representative, I need backup. So you get that, and if you can have the utility help participate in that, that's great. And then if the other 362 days of the year that everything's running great, you can participate with the utility to allow that battery, to allow that solar or not, whether depending on your situation, to aid in a more stable grid, lower prices long term, decarbonization of the grid, so that we leave behind a better planet than what we came into for the future generations. It sounds cheesy, but that really is the win-win. Mm-hmm. You don't have to choose. You don't have to sacrifice. You don't have to go one direction or the other. You're getting all of it. And I would say that the goal in my mind is not to distract from those folks that really do feel that backup is important, is to create a grid that is so stable that we need less and less of that backup. And that what that lends itself to is more and more incentivization and more participation with the utility to individual ratepayers to use that battery for those things, so that we just create a more and more stable grid with fewer and fewer carbon-based fuels at its heart.
I always love how he gets into this idea, which is great, by the way. It's very true as it pertains to grid science, that as a VPP is more successful, the need for backup power becomes less anyway.
Yep.
And if what you're calling as a VPP is an emergency load reduction program because the grid's about to collapse and it's once a year, it's a cute idea, but the issue is that you're literally just bringing your battery network to the problem when it's a really big problem, instead of solving the problem in the first place. But I just want to add to you, because your question is so good, from an academic perspective, you're seeing with the VPP offsetting peak periods. Now, peak periods have enormously high CO2 outputs. In other words, homes and buildings produce CO2. You also have production of CO2 from the actual power plants. You have it from cars. Peaking factories, peaking times or peak periods are the worst. By far, you could see 12, 13, 14x the CO2 emissions parts per million in the environment being pushed in during that peak period.
And that's when people are, you say peaking because they're using power the most, right?
That's exactly
so usage
right.
is highest.
Thank you.
Okay.
So their usage is highest. And so specifically targeting your harnessed and bottled up solar to offset those peak periods is when the grid needs it, right? Because the grid is dealing with all this load, and the grid operators have to call on expensive, dirty peaking power plants to deal with those most difficult hours of the day. So the first thing the VPP does, which a regular solar array can't do, thereby increasing your CO2 reduction footprint, is directing the solar to offset specific peak periods. Secondly, the problems that you see in what's called the duck curve from a solar array, and what's called the belly of the duck curve, are eliminated by the VPP. So instead of pushing solar into the grid and in a heartbreaking way making power plants pull back, and then when peak period starts, you have to fire the power plants really fast, and the only power plants that can fire fast are peaking power plants. And so in that way, solar has a inverse reaction of what it should on CO2 reduction. It's a heartbreaking part of the duck curve. Well, all that's gone too with the VPP. And then finally, or maybe two more things, on ancillary side, there's all these things that happen with the grid that cause CO2 emissions. Example, Rocky Mountain Power uses old coal-burning power plants for frequency stabilization. Some of the dirtiest power plants. And the VPP handles frequency response, which is great. Finally, is infrastructure. If you're going to have to build all this new infrastructure because of peaking power loads and because of, be frank, solar, the belly of the duck curve. If you have to build new transformer upgrades, if you have to build all, this has a huge CO2 footprint. We're talking about billions of dollars of new infrastructure. With the VPP, you should be able to wipe out all of that CO2 and cost.
Awesome.
Well,
Which means customers'
price for the
cost.
customers
Yeah.
too. Yeah, I mean, even if people don't have solar, don't have a battery, this is benefiting them. It's going to keep our
Exactly.
overall
That's where I
costs
went
down.
to too.
The cost down and the grid doesn't go down.
Yes.
Yeah.
100%.
It's a good point,
It's
actually.
good.
So I want to go back. You just a minute ago, you talked about Utah, being kind of, I mean, we know this, we've talked about this a lot, but I mean, just for those of you guys watching, Utah really is leading the whole country with this philosophy and this idea. I mean, we were the first to do it. Rocky Mountain Power with, Billy Como, jumping on board with the wattsmart program, kind of the first to see this vision with you guys. We came in maybe after the vision was already there, but quickly saw the vision with you. It's kind of cool to think that just little old Utah, we're a conservative state. Who knows why everyone goes solar in Utah? Who knows why they add batteries? Probably more times than not, it's they want power outage or cost savings, but there are tons of people still care about obviously environment. And the good thing is we get both. It doesn't matter. You don't have to pick or choose.
That's right.
We get both here in Utah. But I've always thought it was pretty cool that out of all the states in America, Utah is the one leading the way. And again, you guys brought this. We've kind of pioneered it. I think to date we've done 96% of all the applications through wattsmart. So this partnership has been a game changer for all of us and for Utah. And it's kind of cool to see other utility companies kind of get on board. So my next question for you then is, we just saw what happened in California. And basically California, with the new NEM 3 change, they're following Utah's footsteps as far as understanding the importance of VPP. Where do you guys see this going kind of in the next 3 to 5 years?
No, please. Lead off.
These are such good questions. We
Yeah.
both could just do them.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is nothing short of magical what has been achieved here. That's why I flew in to address your organization again and talk about, from an academic perspective, what's been achieved. Just for everybody's sake, these are salespeople that are very highly educated, that are very good, passionate people that work for ES Solar. I'm not teaching them how to sell necessarily. I'm telling them what's going on and the effect of their work. And the effect of their work is inspiring them. Mm-hmm. So what has happened? Well, it wasn't supposed to happen. It wasn't supposed to happen in Utah. It was supposed to happen in California. Makes no sense that it would happen here. Yet 3 weeks ago, Bill Como's in Germany lecturing people from an international community about ES Solar. And this is both Europe and across the United States. We went to Washington, D.C. We lectured. We're in a panel with over 200 utilities and 100 and some regulators from every state in the union. The topic, wattsmart, ES Solar. In Orlando, we went, and you sent a representative, Nick Evans, coming to Florida to sit on that panel with us, speaking to over 200 utilities. After wattsmart launched, Rocky Mountain Power brought utilities to Salt Lake City for a summit from around the country to teach them how to do it. So how did it happen? I mean, in a very fast nutshell, you have what I think is the Utah approach. It's so special to Utah culture. You have this idea that first of all, if renewable energy really is ultimately going to cause some trouble and even increase costs of ratepayers, and if it's a new cost infrastructure in Utah culture, I don't think this sat well. But at the same time, Utah culture was not, I guess the Utah conservative is not the person who says, climate change is not real. Instead, in Utah, it's okay, we're going to attack this problem, but we're going to do it in a way that actually makes sense. And we're going to do it in a way it's responsible energy transition was a term coined here. Conservationism instead of environmentalism. So you had this thing in Utah where the legislature and the public, I love the Public Service Commission member, the regulator I'm buddies with now, they literally saw this as, well, what is wrong with this? We're going to go after the environmental problem and the clean air problem, and we're going to do it in a way that doesn't add any costs at all and keeps people's bills low. So you end up having huge support on both sides of the aisle here, which is really weird. Because you can't really go, how are you going to go against this? And even folks from one side of the aisle that typically are not known for clean energy stuff, we're all about it because it was a responsible way to do it, market-based. And then the other side wasn't going to go against it. And so you have this thing in Utah, and then you guys took it and made a real model for it. And so to answer your question in a long way, I don't think this story is anything less than exceptional. Because you could replicate this story. I don't care if you're a blue state, a red state, a purple state, or a turquoise state. You could replicate this story, and you could fight climate change and help clean energy become a reality, and at the same time, keep those Utah principles of efficiency, no extra bureaucracy. Rocky Mountain Power's cutting checks faster than you guys can even handle, right? And they're not a 6-month wait time. They're Utah fast. So anyway, I just think that's my thought on why what Utah has done to become the biggest in the country is both extraordinary, totally unheard of, still sinking in, by the way, in California. It's still sinking in.
And it's just the beginning. That's what's cool. I feel like, we just started the Go Back program. We've been doing it for about 6 months now, and it's kind of changed our whole business. But I can speak to it because I meet with customers, face to face, and the customers in Utah get it. They're smart. They understand that the battery has always been the missing piece. Like solar to a lot of our customers never made sense because they're like, well, the sun goes down, So I mean, it's really basic, right? The sun goes down. Now, where are we going to get our energy from? And when we start talking about the batteries and how it's, for the first time in my history in a decade of doing solar, a win-win-win. Customers win, we win, and Rocky Mountain Power, the utility, wins. So I tell people at our organization that the solar coaster, we call it, like, when the solar opportunity going to end, it's just the beginning.
That's right.
Now that it's a win-win-win, like it's gonna be here for decades and decades and years to come. So really excited, really happy to be a part of it and be able to work with you.
You're leading it, and when you say it's going to keep going, it's going to keep going for ES Solar.
Right.
To be totally frank, it's not going to keep going for people who don't understand and companies who don't understand that this is a responsible energy transition.
Yep.
This is the way to sell. And it's not so easy. Somehow you guys have figured it out.
Yeah.
Well, and it's sad because we've been talking for at least 2 years now that all solar companies need to understand that it's changing, right?
Yep.
Like solar alone does not make sense. It's not the future. It can't work for the grid. We all know this. And so we've been trying to tell other solar companies now, guys, it's time to get on board. You have to learn how to incorporate a battery in your system. Storage is the future. You have to kind of do this. And now you see what happened in California, and it's sad. I mean, their net meter changed, and I think almost 50% of all companies in California have either left the state or out of business because they don't know how to do batteries.
And
it scares me.
you're right, literally taking the biggest solar market in the country and running as fast as they can away from it. And then, bless their hearts, blaming politics and blaming things of this nature. I mean, certainly there's always politics involved, but to blame that and not look at the basics of grid science is very sad.
Yep.
And so now solar is going to try to help California out a little bit, which is good.
Yeah, it makes sense for us because we get it and we understand. If everyone else is leaving California and want to do it, we'll go in there and do it. We know what the importance of it. We know how to install it. But again, I really think the industry's changing, and what we saw in California is going to happen over and over again across the United States the next 3 to 5 years. And solar companies that don't know how to do storage and battery are going to be gone.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
It will. It 100% will. So net metering as a program does what it's supposed to do very well. It gets people engaged in renewable energy. It aids adoption, and at some point, you have to switch into another gear, and that next gear is solar plus battery. It is this evolution of net metering away from one-to-one, credits to something that makes more sense for the local area. And the way it works for California might be different than the way it works for Utah or Iowa or Florida. But at the heart of it is that flexibility and that swarm control and those smart controls that enable whatever it is that they're trying to solve.
That's right.
Yeah. I love it.
100%.
Okay. Anything else, Chris?
Okay, so here's just final thing.
All right.
I might have something else after this, but just one thing I want to it's just in 1 minute.
Oh boy.
1 minute, you're talking to a customer right now in Utah. You're sitting in their home. They're thinking about, does this make sense or not? What do you tell them? Both of you get 1 minute.
Me go first or you?
Sure, you go. I know you have your thoughts for.
Well, so certainly what we're trying to do for you is bring clean energy to your life, carbon neutral living, but also that backup power that we talked about, that peace of mind. But at the same time, I want you to know that our battery, you're empowering your battery to live up to its full potential. That's what this VPP thing is. Don't remember those letters. Just know that you're going to get paid to do the right thing. And it's going to help all of your neighbors. The grid will go down less because of your battery. And we want to get you a check for that. But that's the idea of what we sell at ES Solar.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Yeah. How are you going to follow that?
Love it. Perfect. You're hired.
Well, yeah, he knows a lot more about this than I do. I mean, I'm the academic.
I'll go a little flighty. I think what I would maybe say is something to the effect of, this is a ticket to the future. This is buying in now with a system that works, that has a buyback now, that protects you from the future, regardless of what happens. A war, politics, energy rates, it doesn't matter. You are generating your own power, you're storing that power, you're interacting with the grid, you are going to have a seat at the table, you're going to have a ticket to that party no matter what happens next. And you are going to be better prepared for whatever comes our way because you're choosing solar plus the VPP and sonnen today.
Love it.
Man.
These guys are good.
Those are good. That's good. Honestly, I think you hit it on the head a little bit, Geoff. I think that's why a lot of people in Utah do buy. Yeah. I think people in Utah, we want to be a little bit self-dependent.
Yeah, sure.
And just knowing that not only inflation goes out the window, we don't have to worry about prices going up. So we had an earthquake in Utah or a crazy natural disaster. We have backup power.
Yep.
We're helping our grid and our neighbors, which we like to do in Utah. We like to know that we're kind of leading the way, and I mean, you kind of hit on all those, and I think that's why this resonates with so many
insurance. True self-reliance, not just from outages, but more importantly from buyback rates. If you've already made the investment to go solar, the net meter changed. And you're not grandfathered in forever. So you're going to need to add a battery at some point, and it's going to make your solar smart. You're going to be able to produce, store, and consume your power right there on site. So perfectly said.
Cool.
Yeah.
Insurance policy, I think you guys call it, don't you?
Yeah.
It works very, very well.
Protect your investment for sure.
The beauty of all this is that it's also darn genuine.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great to sell something that's so authentic.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not so easy to explain, but it's super genuine. So once people get it, your team is being able to transfer their enthusiasm, which is pretty cool.
No, we're lucky. We're in one of those industries, and I don't know if it happens all the time, but the products we sell and give to people, they help them. They help the grid.
Yes.
They're
all
good
society.
for us at our. I mean, something we really can feel good about when we see them in the future. Like, heaven forbid we ever have an earthquake. I hope we never do. I mean, they predicted it forever, and it could happen. But if something crazy that happens, you know how good it's going to feel to know that we've got 5,000 customers when the power's out for 3 weeks or whatever happens with our power, or say inflation keeps going up and rates are 20 cents a kilowatt hour one day, and we have all these customers that they've already locked theirs in. They're saving money right now. And again, back to our grid. It's really cool to know that Utah's gonna have the best grid in the United States. So it is really a win-win-win, which is rare. There's not many things like that around. So
It's hard to be divisive about it, yeah.
Okay, well, appreciate you guys coming. This is awesome. We love
being
hearing from you
here.
guys. We love our partnership,
And us as well.
I see big things in the future for all of us together. So
ES Solar, the flagship. Continue along your voyage.
Let's do it.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all you guys that joined.